Donald Trump once again finds himself at the center of a political firestorm that is shaking Washington and dominating headlines across the United States. In a dramatic and deeply polarizing moment, Trump has outright refused to resign, despite mounting pressure from lawmakers, fierce criticism from across the political spectrum, and explosive reactions inside Congress. What began as political tension has now turned into an all-out institutional clash, with the very foundations of American democracy being debated on the House and Senate floors, on cable news, and around kitchen tables nationwide. The controversy erupted after a series of revelations and confrontations that lawmakers say crossed constitutional, ethical, and political red lines. Members of Congress, particularly Democrats, but also a growing number of Republicans, argue that Trump's actions represent a direct challenge to democratic norms and the rule of law. From their perspective, resignation would be the honorable and stabilizing step. Trump, however, has taken the opposite stance. He insists he has done nothing wrong, calls the outrage a witch hunt, and frames the congressional backlash as a politically motivated attack aimed at undermining his leadership and silencing the voters who put him in power. Inside Congress, emotions have been running high. Lawmakers have delivered fiery speeches accusing Trump of abusing power, ignoring constitutional limits, and placing personal and political interests above the nation. Sessions have reportedly been filled with shouting matches, procedural chaos, and intense behind-the-scenes negotiations. Senior Democrats have described the situation as a constitutional emergency, arguing that the president's refusal to resign in the face of overwhelming criticism threatens the credibility of American institutions. Some have even warned that history will judge this moment as a turning point, either for accountability or for unchecked executive power. Republicans, meanwhile, are deeply divided. Trump's most loyal allies have rushed to his defense, echoing his claims that the uproar is nothing more than partisan theater. They argue that resignation demands are premature, unconstitutional, and disrespectful to millions of voters. According to them, Congress is overstepping its authority and weaponizing outrage to achieve what it could not at the ballot box. These supporters frame Trump as a fighter who refuses to bow to pressure, portraying his defiance as strength rather than recklessness, yet cracks are clearly forming within Trump's own party. A number of Republican lawmakers have expressed discomfort, not always publicly, but increasingly in private, about the direction of events. Some have suggested that Trump's refusal to resign is prolonging the crisis and damaging the party's long-term prospects. Others worry about the precedent being set if a president can simply ignore congressional outrage and mounting evidence of misconduct. What does that mean for future administrations? These concerns have fueled tense closed-door meetings and whispered conversations in Capitol corridors. Trump's response has been characteristically aggressive and unapologetic. Through public statements, social media posts, and speeches to supporters, he has doubled down on his refusal to step aside. He insists that resigning would be an admission of guilt and a betrayal of the American people. Trump portrays himself as the victim of an elite political class that fears his populist agenda and outsider status. In his narrative, Congress is not acting in defense of democracy, but in defense of its own power. This framing has resonated strongly with Trump's base. Across the country, supporters have rallied, held demonstrations, and flooded social media with messages backing his decision to stay. Many view the congressional backlash as further proof that Washington is broken and hostile to outsiders. For them, Trump's refusal to resign is a symbol of resistance against what they see as corruption, hypocrisy, and double standards within the political establishment. These supporters argue that if Trump were to resign under pressure, it would embolden future efforts to overturn election results through political intimidation rather than democratic processes. Opponents see the situation very differently. Critics argue that Trump's refusal to resign is not about principle, but about power. They say he is deliberately inflaming tensions, undermining trust in democratic institutions, and encouraging a dangerous level of polarization. Legal scholars and constitutional experts have weighed in, warning that the ongoing standoff could weaken checks and balances. Some have pointed out that the U.S. system relies heavily on norms and good faith, not just written laws, and that Trump's defiance risks eroding those unwritten rules. The media has played a central role in amplifying the drama. Cable news networks have devoted wall-to-wall coverage to the crisis, featuring panels of former lawmakers, legal analysts, and political strategists. Conservative outlets tend to emphasize Trump's claims of persecution and focus on alleged hypocrisy among his critics. Liberal outlets highlight the severity of the allegations and the unprecedented nature of a president refusing to resign amid such widespread condemnation. This fragmented media landscape has further deepened divisions among the public, with Americans often consuming entirely different versions of the same events. Behind the scenes, the implications of Trump's refusal to resign are far-reaching. Congressional leaders are reportedly exploring multiple options, including formal investigations, subpoenas, and even impeachment proceedings. Each option carries significant political risks. Impeachment, for example, could energize Trump's base while exhausting Democratic resources and attention. At the same time, failing to act could alienate voters who expect accountability. Lawmakers are thus caught between principle and pragmatism, weighing constitutional duties against electoral consequences. Internationally, allies and adversaries alike are watching closely. The United States has long presented itself as a model of democratic governance, and the current crisis raises uncomfortable questions abroad. Some foreign leaders have expressed concern, while others appear eager to exploit perceived weakness or division. Analysts warn that prolonged instability at the top of the U.S. government could undermine America's global standing and credibility, particularly when it comes to promoting democratic values overseas. For Trump himself, the stakes could not be higher. By refusing to resign, he is betting that he can outlast the outrage and emerge politically stronger. Much as he has in previous controversies, he has survived scandals, investigations, and intense criticism before, often turning them into rallying points for his supporters. This time, however, critics argue that the scale and intensity of the backlash are different, involving not just media criticism, but institutional resistance from Congress itself. The American public is sharply divided in its reaction. Polls suggest that opinions about Trump's refusal to resign largely break along partisan lines, though there is also a segment of independent voters who express fatigue and frustration with the constant turmoil. Many Americans worry less about the specifics of the controversy and more about the broader impact on national unity and governance. There is a growing sense that the country is stuck in a cycle of crisis, outrage, and paralysis, with little room for compromise or healing. At its core, the situation raises fundamental questions about leadership, accountability, and democracy. Should a president step down when faced with overwhelming opposition from Congress, even if no formal legal process has concluded? Or should resignation only follow clear legal judgments, regardless of political pressure? Trump's refusal to resign forces the nation to confront these questions head-on without easy answers. As Congress continues to debate, investigate, and argue, the outcome remains uncertain. What is clear is that this moment will be remembered as a defining chapter in modern American politics. Whether Trump's defiance will ultimately be seen as a dangerous abuse of power or as a principled stand against partisan overreach will depend on how events unfold in the coming weeks and months. For now, the clash between Trump and Congress continues to escalate, leaving the nation watching, divided, and waiting for what comes next.